Just down the street from those four-way stops.
Put a dummy in it.
Yeah, like down all over Southern Utah, and I know it's a
Yeah.
dummy, and I still slow down.
Never tried until you told me.
And then you switch around, sometimes there's one there.
Put the hat on.
Fold everybody over.
Okay, so we tackle 10, we're gonna look at the school or the signage, and so council will discuss that as well, and then probably have at least a comment, whether it's agenda item or not. We'll have a report of what we've accomplished by next meeting.
Thank you.
So what's our,
So the signs would be, have you asking?
no, what's our course of, what's the action on?
Well, my action, we discuss this and find out what we find important and wording wise, and then we'd go to the county and implement it through the county.
So you're putting it on the agenda for next time, or are we talking about it right now?
Well,
No,
no, we're gonna put it on the agenda next time, so we have to think about it, and think we should. So,
That's what I was looking for in the
Yes,
past.
the county for one of those, digital deal to use it.
and over the sheriff can.
Yeah, why?
They do put it on once in a while.
Yeah, why
It's
don't,
been
why
on 3,000
don't?
south.
Why don't?
Yeah, it's been on
Or move it
3,000
around.
south. Well, when it was on 3,000 south, somebody stole all the batteries out of it, so that might be a reason.
But,
They're farmers. They need batteries.
Okay, so the action on that is on the agenda for next month to finalize the wording and forward the signs.
Okay.
Number 11 will be planning department report, violations and enforcement.
Okay.
Send that over to Eric.
So we've had a busy month with complaints coming in. I know that some of you are aware of them. We're working through them. You know, sure. Okay. Make sure. Here, Ryan. Sure. There's a few here if anybody
Could you send some on the back? We'll take one.
just send them back if you would. So that's what's been going on in this town.
I'm quite done.
Any questions?
Yeah, what,
Dang it.
Clyde residence building permit, that house is like well along the way, are they just getting a building permit or something, or?
Well, the building permit, remember they got a partial permit because it was between engineering firms. And so they had a partial permit, and so they finally got the rest of their permit in.
Okay.
And they've started inspections, and I think there's some questions that we're dealing with on that property in particular. But we're on our way
Okay.
with them. As a matter of fact, I think they just put the roof on it.
Yeah, I think we're doing fine, and I think we're okay on inspections. We followed up and looked into it.
Okay.
But there were some questions that we got answers to.
Is there anything that
You're not on
besides this with regards to you're handling all this stuff, depending on what stuff, I mean.
This is just the stuff I tell you about. I don't tell you everything I do.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's more than this you're actually dealing with, this is,
Be here till midnight.
Yeah.
Eric, that, down here, it's talking about this demolition of the mobile homes.
Uh-huh. That was in the corner of the mobile home park.
Are you aware that they've moved a new trailer in on it?
I am aware of that, yep. Yeah, we actually initiated Ryan to go out and put a stop work order on it. And we found another construction going on in there at the same time. So he issued a stop work order on that. And we decided not to issue a stop work order on the trailer that was already apart. Because we thought they should clean it up.
What about that woman who built the house around the trailer?
I think that was the one that got the stop work order, wasn't it?
There's two. One got a stop work order a year ago, and the other one got one last weekend. Labor Day weekend?
They haven't issued a tear it down over yet, no?
No.
We've had a no response out of the owner.
Kim, does that backhoe yours run still?
Somebody stole the batteries.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Okay. So with regards to that,
So I printed off I went to Google Earth and printed off because I knew this question was gonna come up, map from 2006, and it shows a trailer in that very spot. So
My
that's
question
prior
would
to
be,
the town.
is trying to find out though what their originally expansion, what they originally applied for, and if they've expanded beyond that, because that would have been, if they've expanded beyond it, then under county rule, that wouldn't be right, and under our rule, it wouldn't be right. So I
Right.
think we're gonna find that question out there.
Yeah, but I think what you're gonna find is the health department reluctant to move on that, even if they pass that. But that will take some homework for GDA to go back and search out with the county. I'm sure it's under a conditional use. And so we can certainly go that, if the council wants to do that, move that direction and pull it to conditional use and see.
In talking to others, I know I would like to see that, and I've heard for 10 years of what might be, I'd like to find out and see with my own eyes what is appropriate for that spot. So I'd like the council to let Ryan figure out the lot or whoever, I mean, if we go to a picture, says something, but the document's gonna be a bit more important.
Yeah, the document should have conditional use of what they was approved for. And I don't know, how would we go about that, health department?
Probably county records. I can initiate that and start going back through that process. But I mean, it's just a search.
It is.
The other issue is they do have 2 stop work orders, and, you know, along with moving that trailer back in, it doesn't appear that they have completely stopped work on the construction either. So we need to I guess we need direction on the next step there too. I think it's,
They
at this
did
point,
not
I think
stop?
it's legal.
No,
They did not stop. I drove by Friday and it appeared they were continuing to work.
Okay, when I went by, nothing was going on.
We're working on an engine underneath it, also working on it.
So I'm talking about the 2 where they built the house around the trailer. I
Yeah, the
didn't-
2 side by side.
I haven't seen active construction, but it's not the way I saw, when I issued the stop work order, I took a lot of pictures, and that's not what there's now. There's a lot more now than there was then.
Good man. Pictures, we love.
So if you need direction, I would probably say we'd do the same as we do on anybody else. If they're belongs to the work order, then we take the next step. And if I need to make a phone call, David will make that phone call. Council feel we should act any other way?
Well, who are you going after, the trailer owner or the owner of the trailer park?
I would say the person who owns the property of the trailer park who's letting all these things happen and not responding to our letters.
That's who I think we should go after.
So I don't know about going after as much as clarifying what he can and can't do, and if I'm sure you know, but we can find out what, that's why I think the research that Ryan's gonna do is gonna help us, you know, make an affirmative action one way or the other. So does the council agree we can let
Does
Ryan?
anybody know how long that thing's been there?
That trailer park?
Yeah.
Longer than you've been born.
That's why I asked, if anybody else there.
I've been around for 38 years, longer than I've been around.
Longer than your 38 years, okay.
Wasn't that like 1947 or something?
Wow.
I don't know.
It's-
I don't know how long it's been
Been
there.
there a long
67.
time.
Well, then there's no use going back and looking because there was no zoning before 1975.
They could have put a Walmart there, so.
So your best bet then is to go to see what they are approved at.
And either or. Yeah.
We'll look into
There won't be a conditional use.
those avenues. I mean, just historic photographs will tell me when it started, and then from there I can go to the county and look at the septic
And you'll be able to do that on Google Earth.
and planning and look at any minutes or agendas they may have had on that.
How much you want to spend on it?
Some, but not a lot.
There's marching orders.
I'm sure he'll tell me if it's gonna be if it's gonna be a lot, we'll try to see what we can do to make sure we cut the corner.
That sounds good. Next time when we approve the warrants, we'll talk about it.
I'm kind of kidding, we'll do. I don't know about a.
Well, I mean, it's research. It takes a lot of time. You're digging through all documents.
So my understanding is that there's some individuals that have done a lot of that, so hopefully I can just take what they have and then fill in some gaps. Hopefully it's not too bad.
That's kind of my understanding that some people.
And I'll also
And I
have,
haven't seen any of that documentation, so I don't know that it is. I heard it exists, but I haven't seen it.
well, I'm in the same boat, I haven't seen it, I've heard it.
Okay,
That's what I-
But that's where I intend to start, is where I've heard that somebody already pulled it all together.
okay.
And then second, I'll have Familia do as much as possible so that we keep the billable rates down.
Any other questions for Eric?
So we also have the complaints at the bottom.
Fence complaints.
Bench Drive lot being used to store landscape equipment, I believe. You guys had a meeting with that lot owner?
We did.
How'd that go?
Terse.
No.
Yeah, it was, in fact, it was interesting because we had our HOA meeting and it was opened up and one person said, what's that going on down on your lot? Even after I talked to him and warned him a couple times, and he said, well, that's my equipment. I said, we have an HOA, and we got a little terse, and he's cleaned it up somewhat. He's still got some stuff at the back. It's been made real clear on at least 3 occasions that we're not going to do that. From what I understand, our HOA is solidly against it, but it's also a Daniel rule that that's not going to happen either, correct?
Yeah, you can't run a business off that lot, so.
He's coming down every day, every morning.
You take your equipment out every,
Yes,
So he's still running the trailers.
every morning and every night. Bring it back.
So the best we've heard so far is he says, well, I want to plant trees, and then I'm going to shuffle the trees in and out for landscaping, which I don't really think that that's legitimate either. But, and then he's been having the trailers coming in and out. That's been a speeding issue for us because they're hitting about 40, 45 coming in and out of there. That's not what actually almost got my dog.
Where's that?
But he clearly understands what the next step's going to have to be.
So Ranch Drive is before.
Yeah, these guys have an HOA in there. So, what does the council want me to do? Do you want me to send a letter? Do you want me to draft a letter for your approval? Do you want me to stand in and yell?
okay?
What do you want me to do?
As far as that,
That issue, do you want me to draft a letter? Okay. Send it off for your approval prior to sending it off?
yep.
Okay.
I'll go to the landowner or the owns it.
So I need to get some information from you from the landlord.
So you're talking about this top one, Eric, on Ranch Drive?
Yes.
So why can't you run a business out of there?
What he's doing is he's taking all of his landscape equipment down there and dumping all of his rocks and material supplies, and then he's loading them up from there and coming out every day.
So what part of our code does he violate by doing that?
Well, I think he's in nuisance right now. I think that's what we're looking at, is nuisance right
He's
now.
also running.
He's running a business.
He doesn't
out
have
of-
a business license to run that.
He's a property, he doesn't have a house.
There's no home on the lot either, which is
Okay,
an
I
issue.
think that makes a big difference, actually.
He's a new owner too.
He's a new owner.
Recently purchased this, so.
Well, if he has a house on there with that,
Well,
he still.
by the time he gets the house done, we'll have 825 done, maybe.
Who said that?
All right.
Hey,
It would be good to know, because, I mean, we have our own HOA, which clearly forbids it, but, you know, if it can be handled at the township level, he has indicated that he's gonna comply, but he's taking his sweet time complying, and so I think the letter would be good.
you know, it's a notice letter, just reconfirming what you told him or.
Yep. Yeah, just pointing out some codes to him, so, to be able to view that. And so we did have 2 signed complaints on that one. And then we have the fences. You wanna talk about the fences? You continue to, no? Put that away.
Yeah, I don't, so, if someone wants to talk about it, we can keep going on. Want to discuss it? Fences?
Well, if you want me to do something about it, we gotta discuss it.
I know, I just, tonight, maybe just another night to look at some other complaints, because that might take a little more discussion before you send up the letter for that.
Okay? So, if anybody wants to do a little homework, that code would be 82728-4. Clear visibility at intersecting streets,
Do that again, 8 what?
82728-4.
And who determines that, Eric, the clear visibility?
Who do you mean, who determines
Who would go to that intersection or that fenced area and say, yeah, there is clear visibility, or no, there isn't?
that? That'd be me.
Zone enforcement.
Does it depend how far you put your hand out?
And it's pretty clear.
Well, it's really easy,
very
it's 25 feet back, 25 foot back,
Yeah,
that's
it's just a
right.
triangle, which you can't.
Got it.
That triangle has to be cleared.
Measure from the middle of the road to
Nope.
the fence. Where's the,
I measure from the property line. So that corner, where that corner's at, 25 feet back.
You're
25.
talking one on 3,000, that corner, which corner?
Well, here, I'll just read it to you and then that'll tell you where I measure from.
Okay?
Clear visibility at intersection streets. In all zones, no obstructions to view in excess of 3 feet in height above road grade shall be placed on any corner lot within the triangular area formed by streets at the property line and at a line connecting them at points 25 feet from the intersection of the street line. And of course, there's a figure, you can go look at that on in our.
How's that?
Except a reasonable number of trees, oh whoops, I missed one there. Except a reasonable number of trees pruned enough to permit automobile drivers an unobstructed view. This shall not require changes in the natural grade on the site. If a sign is proposed to be placed near an intersection, different standards may apply. See 826 regarding street signs.
So it's not really you, this is clear code.
Well, it's being measured.
Yeah, you
But-
measured it,
Yeah,
but it's clear.
it's clear.
So if the road's got a peak in it, that you're not measured from the peak of the road.
No, I go to the property line and that 25 visibility has to be,
Oh, no, I'm talking from on the height,
oh, the height?
the height
Yeah, it's 3 foot.
from the peak of
Well, actually, our code will,
the, where is it?
our code will speak to that as the natural grade.
The natural grade.
Yeah, so that's come up in several
I'm on the planning
boundaries.
commission, so I just want the
The natural grade, what is the difference?
Yeah, what is
Go in 5 minutes ago, that's on the natural grade.
You've seen this place.
Yeah, we have some condos up on the corner that are going into Browns Canyon
And
and
it's
it
even
used to be
worse
going
now,
down about,
because they
oh,
don't have
probably
the
100 feet
property
and they
across
filled it
the
all in.
street.
And then all of a sudden they could build because it was above the natural grade, so
I'm on the planning
that was
commission,
the
so
boundary.
talk about it.
So that's the one on the corner,
I'm
and then
concerned
there's
about
another
what's
one for
gonna
the,
be.
for the fences, but if you want to do it.
Not that it would work.
Yeah, I would, just because we have some discussions on other ways we can
Yeah.
manage some of this, so.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm in a holding pattern.
Okay? At least on that.
Yes.
Yes, I have plenty of them.
Okay?
For your.
Anybody else have anything for Eric on, planning report? Moving on to item 12, continuing discussion, thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
Continuing discussion on amendment A, home occupation code 8.25.
None of us get.
Last month, we got down to the last few paragraphs of,
Thank you.
I think it's the amendment A version.
Sneak out.
Chapter 8.25.
Craig will be clean.
Did anybody, did anybody get a chance to read over what we did discuss, the changes, and it just looked like what we discussed and changed, and I kind of read through it all, and it seemed like what we discussed, we're down to those last three paragraphs. Did I miss anything, or not where we were?
Where did we get?
I think we got down to K on the back page. So there's the last three paragraphs, K, N, and O, that we had question marks by that we couldn't get the verbiage right on those three line items as far as that night. I went through, like I said, today, and didn't see anything up to these three that, but I think O certainly has to be discussed, and that's kind of what's come up tonight. Now, everyone needs to understand that this particular code that we're going to talk tonight is the second part of the newer version of home-based business code. This is the dull part of the meeting.
No, it's exciting, come back, come back.
Just figured out the
If you were having some delivery, so. March
think a business, I like to call it,
Oh,
a regular
okay.
basis. Equipment shouldn't be like a tractor. Okay, so as far as finishing up this, did anybody see, before we get to the three, did anybody see any changes that we're supposed to get made? Didn't get made, or we reserved for that point? Just so the council knows the process is going to be, we'll finish out these three, send it back to planning. They're the ones who gave the recommendation to us. They'll look at it, and then we'll get it back and try to finalize it. Does that sound like the right process? Yeah. That's okay.
You lost your style.
I guess I lost the meeting.
You lost control.
Oh, it's coming.
Oh, it's coming back now. Important part.
Yeah. Yeah, he has costs.
Is there any way we can make these 20 minutes apart or sign it here? That's what Thank you. No, yep, I get it. Okay, so Kay says, we're trying to finish out this. This is large industrial equipment such as backhoes, track hoes, mini track hoes, skid steers, and lifts are not allowed. That's why there's a question mark. We could not come up, or we did not come up at that time if we wanted to strike it, change it, or manipulate that sentence.
Strike it.
You gotta strike.
Your statement says it shouldn't be out of the ordinary from already existing uses in this community. How many people in this community use a backhoe, a track hoe, a mini track hoe, skid steers, or lifts? Okay, as long as there's not a business marking that just makes it stand right out, what is the problem? How is that going to scream business to anybody?
You know, once again, this is all to be changed, so that no one's saying that that's gonna be the problem. We're gonna discuss it. My option to answer your question would be,
I don't see how that's out of
it's gonna be hard to
existing use.
have it, whether it's a skid steer or a backhoe or a hole on a skid steer or whatever. If it's personal, that's kind of it. But if you have a excavating business and you have your track hose, that's a totally different scenario. I don't know how to verbally make that difference, but that, in my mind,
I
is what
agree.
we're trying to deal with, not the guy that digs post holes and moves manure and
Right.
turns.
But okay, so say I own a business, I don't have a backhoe for the business.
But you should.
But I have a backhoe for the business, and I don't want to buy a personal one to use at home, so I have my business backhoe at home and use it. I use it both. I mean, why is this a problem? Does it stand out in the community? Does it?
I would think that it's not a backhoe, it's multiple backhoes, track hoes, and all the excavation
It's
equipment
all
that.
multiples.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going how it, I think size matters, and I think that's what we keep forgetting here, is the number.
So if we limit
I mean,
it to.
if you're gonna fill your lot with those things, okay, but to have one,
little one.
what's the problem?
So that's where I don't, where do we draw that line?
That's why there's a question
Where are we
mark.
drawing?
Tonnage.
Where do we draw that line? How many tractors?
Calling its number, I mean,
Excessive amount. It's just tonnage.
So could one person have every kind of equipment they want for their business on their ground just because they might use the track hoe once a year on their ground, but they keep it there 364 days a year?
and we have a backhoe that's ours.
Right, and I think probably most residents have some kind of lifting for hay and all their equipment for sure.
So where do we draw the line? We'd like solutions, please, speak.
You've got some equipment? What are you thinking?
You could say, hey, I've got this piece to do this, I've got this piece to do this. How can you fault that?
And we're not trying to
Well,
follow.
it's pretty loose there.
Yep, it is. And I would
Really?
say that, and I would personally like to tighten it up to where we
And
know.
I think
it-
every one of us in this room's probably had a piece of equipment on the property. or something.
Maybe a large crane
But
might
this says are not allowed,
get
period.
apart.
Yeah, it's pretty,
So if you look at K, N, and O, they're almost, shipping, transport, trucking businesses are not allowed.
Yeah,
I would
it's not
agree with
many.
that. I think on that particular line item, all short-term rentals, motels, bed and breakfast, and reception centers are not allowed.
No, I don't.
Those two,
Okay, but
if Kay's
I,
gonna pull this up, I'd like to get to the other two and then have that one sentence and either chew on it and, because we all have equipment.
but I saw you go through every one of these last month and say, oh, we already have that business, strike it. Oh, we already have that business, strike it. Oh, we already have that business, strike it. And then you get down to trucking businesses, you've got trucking businesses here.
A lot of them.
We've also been told all along, don't worry, because as we do this new one, there will be a place for you. This does not allow any place for you. Are not allowed, that's 0. So
But
to
you got
me,
your place.
uh-huh,
You got your place.
I do have my place.
Kind of.
And
Kind of.
this isn't just totally personal to me.
Oh, no.
I was born and raised here. I knew Daniel forever, so with my parents. There are many. I mean, think Ray Beathers Trucking. Yes, they start small, and that's all it should be here. Something very, very small. They move on when they're big. They shouldn't. They don't belong here. We started small. We've kind of moved up somewhere else because we got big. But what about that guy? I mean, you've got one truck. How is that any different than somebody driving their truck home that works for someone else?
It's not.
I just have issues with you cutting out what our heritage is.
So help,
So
and I
define
think
it.
probably a lot of us
Define
do,
Yeah.
what kind of verbiage
I
do
think we
we
need to
do?
write it right, we just need to write it.
Well, are not allowed is
Well,
pretty
scratch
dang
that,
stringent.
scratch that,
That's
I've
like
only been to a
0.
couple meetings.
Yeah,
But
zip.
you really
Got it.
target the trucking company. Everyone's just out to kill them. And they're not going away. They're not gonna go away.
No,
Not if you guys want to eat.
but the difference between a guy that drives a semi for a living, and there's a difference when he has 8 semis and he's got 8 employees coming to his house and driving all the 8 semis out of his house and things in a residential zone.
And that's
There
what
is
I'm
a
saying.
That is different.
The size
So that's
matters.
what you
How
need to
many?
state.
What are you doing? What's-
2, 4,
Yeah,
1?
I mean,
Are we gonna review
And then we're
this
gonna
on
get asked, how do we come up with that number?
Yeah.
And it's arbitrary, because we're trying to understand, we know we don't want this, and we know we want this, and we gotta be somewhere in between here. And I certainly don't have the answers, but we do have to come up with one, because we'd like to finish this code and be able to move on in 11 months.
This lifetime?
if you're
In
encouraging
this
small
lifetime?
business,
You could
there's
do
the
it.
number.
It's gotta be based on a number.
No, if you're encouraging
Okay,
small
how many?
business, you've
I
got to have
don't,
a
one's
number.
not the number.
Yeah.
One's not the number.
No,
Okay. 10 is the number?
I don't think 10 is.
I think 2
Hey, we're
or
making
3.
progress.
5 or less, I'd
Five or
Five or
less?
less.
Really?
So we have the
That's
community,
probably too many.
I would
don't
say
know.
3 or less.
3 or less of any of these,
Get some
so
numbers.
on number K, 3 or less, so you can have a backhoe, track hoe, and a mini track, but you couldn't have the skid steer lift, so that's the 3 is what we're, I mean, is that the way we're thinking on this particular line item? Now, we're not set at 3, I'm just using that.
So we went off of trucking, we went back.
I think we
We were
were
on
just
K,
talking
we went back to
trucks.
K.
I thought we were talking trucks as well, trucking business.
But you could apply that same concept to that line as well, as I think.
Yeah,
you're saying.
3 pieces of equipment.
If you had a quarter-acre lot, and you had all these pieces of equipment, then I can see a kind of a.
So that's relative.
Yeah.
But where we've got, mostly
160.
we've got so many acres, and you may use something once or twice a year, and that's it.
Oh, and didn't you have a part in here
You're
where
using it in your
it
yard.
addresses what the business is going to be?
It's not really
Or
a
for the business
business.
licenses.
The idea was that we were going to review every business when they applied and find out what their intended use was.
It's all stated in
That
there.
Use, yeah, so, I mean, at one location, 5 might be excellent, like you just said. If they've got a smaller usable area, they may have 5 acres, it might be all on a hillside. Then it's gonna be a different deal, you're gonna get to squeeze 5 trucks in there. So I think that's subjective for the planning commission to draw that line. Obviously, there has to be a limit, I mean, 3, 5, everybody's got a different idea, but I think it depends who your neighbor is, really.
Absolutely does.
Yeah, but
One
what-
is too many to some people.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
That's true.
so the planning commission's gonna have to look at this when they get an application and say, we already know what's gonna happen if you put 5 trucks on that little spot. mean, it's gonna be subjective, and we're gonna have to deal with it.
But if you say 3, then a lot of guys could run a fairly decent landscaping business with 3+ trailers, because we're only talking about big industrial equipment. So then you get your trailers all with your other 3 implements, and pretty soon you got a yard full of equipment going out every day, which I don't know if that's what we're trying to achieve here.
Chip, what if you had a company that came in and wanted to put a home healthcare company, and they wanted to have 10 Priuses sitting there? That'd really be offensive. But, you know, seriously, you could have somebody running a service type industry that may have the same bad effects, so maybe it needs to be written, it can't be singled out to heavy equipment, because it's really human traffic that maybe gets excited.
That's a great way, another
A lot of
observation.
Actually, that's a terrible one, pick something else, they're protected by
Yeah,
federal law.
no human
Pick another
trafficking.
one.
Great money in it. There's great money in it.
And there are other things that are called that if, you know, from nuisances to keeping the neighborhood feeling, to keeping your neighbors happy. So any of these things that pass still have some of these other tentacles that could be an issue for a neighbor that could, you know, make that complaint and show the code right here where the complaint
What
is.
about 1 per acre?
That's interesting.
One what per acre?
One
Back
of
on
these,
track
one of
level.
these, one of these vehicles, we should combine the trucking and the, I'm just throwing that out there. Because we've got some people who've got.
All right, you've got it made. Lease out that area.
If that applies to all of Daniels, we don't have acres on this one. We're all half acres of them.
So how many pieces of equipment on a half acre do you think are too many?
Well, if you're doing 1 an acre, you'd have to default to 1.
You'd have a half of a piece of equipment.
Cut your tractor.
Have to
Yeah,
share
You can have the tractor, no trailer, is that a half acre rule?
The
Brandon, this
tractor
guy
trailer too
sitting
much?
down your alley, what are you thinking?
I was actually leaning, or thinking about the idea of lot size too, in some manner, but it would have to be wrote up.
Part of the equation would be lot size or acreage that someone might have.
Right.
But like he pointed out, a lot of it's the comings and goings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
which is,
Do we add sight unseen so that it makes it more tolerable for someone to have something back somewhere if we don't see it?
Yeah, if you can't see it, I think that.
That's a big difference.
It's huge.
Well, I got a big shed on, I could put all kinds of
You,
in there.
yeah, I
You
know,
can
I
get
know
a bad
where your
neighbor,
place
too.
is.
Where do you live?
Yeah.
At the
She
southernmost
is so
part of
in.
the valley. I am
more south.
just east
I
of
got
the
one.
gravel pit.
You got bad neighbors.
Down
Back
that
down
road,
Lane.
down that
Yeah,
lane.
back down that way.
Down by Sullivan's.
No, the other way.
No.
You know where Jack
The other
Rose
way,
is?
the one east.
Jack Rose.
So go to the end of Gun Club Road.
Oh, back
and then
in there.
turn east.
Yeah, you turn right to go to that couple, you turn left to go east.
So that's the answer, we parked all over there.
You got a lot of room to park it.
Tell me that.
Yeah.
Park it all at yours. You can make
Or everybody's coming to the house.
I mean, I'm
You
just.
can build it down underground into that mountain. and-
Can I charge for it?
You betcha.
That'll be your business.
It's out of
That's your
sight.
business model.
It's out of sight.
I have,
It'll be all outside. It'll work.
I have,
What do you
well,
guys
that's
think?
an interesting story.
As I read through it, it's too strict for me personally as far as not letting anything on not allowed. I know we need to have, I mean, everyone has a backhoe that might sit for most of the year, so.
But when we need it, we need it.
And you need it. I've bought a skid steer, I'm turning dirt and I'm doing whatever, so everybody has that kind of equipment, so I don't feel comfortable with not allowed, but I don't like the 8 people with 8 employees coming because it's got this big,
Did
so.
you address
Agreed.
employees
I think
earlier?
No, I know, we're going in circles here.
Everybody's on
Didn't
board.
Did we not address employees coming and going up earlier? I mean, so
Yeah,
that's.
It does. It's just a matter of, if you put 8 in there, then they're gonna say, well, you've let it put 8, so you gotta have, you know,
What if something to the effect, if you have
Exactly before they get.
so many vehicles and it begins to be a nuisance of, God, you gotta be careful there,
Yeah.
a nuisance of,
You already passed, careful.
that's in there.
nuisance to who?
There, it ends up being a nuisance, running everything all the time, past hours that they should be shutting down.
That's in there as well,
Too
yeah.
early in the morning.
Employees all in there.
Disturbing.
I think it needs to go back to, like you said, an acreage, per acreage thing.
Or leave it and not touch it, and if something's being a nuisance, then
Address
you
it.
address it. Address it from the nuisance end of it.
So if we did it per acre, let's just experiment here, how would they abuse that? How could that be abused?
Well, it limits someone with a smaller amount that has a business that he can't put squat on it versus the guy that has a bigger yard can have the same business and put all this stuff on it. That might be a little unfair to the person who doesn't have the bigger yard.
I'll just talk
Why?
to Terry,
I don't
things
know
will
that
be
it
okay.
would.
Yeah, the smaller yard,
Yeah,
you
right.
are
I don't know that
affecting
that
the
would be.
neighbors
They're
much
not-
more strongly.
No, I'm throwing that out, though, so that's gonna be an issue. This neighbor is gonna say, well, he's got 5 and we have the same business, but then we base it on acreage, well, okay, he doesn't have the right acreage, so
It's done.
granted, it's done, he's out, but is that fair? And I'm just throwing that out, I'm not,
I think it's,
I think it's fair because you chose to purchase that lot. This is the parameters you get to live by, right?
high-rise parking.
It's just like you were discussing with Storm Haven earlier. They don't have enough lot to put a septic system on it. That's no different.
okay. So it looks like the tide's going to size of lot, depending on, and then putting how many pieces of equipment can fit on that lot.
And if you got a farm going on, you may have several different pieces of equipment. And you may have agreements with other farmers around, yeah, you can borrow my piece, and then I can come over and borrow your piece.
And that's happening on Little Sweet. I mean, that's.
Well, yeah.
Every day neighbors help neighbors.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
we all do that.
So that's why I'm kind of wondering, maybe we don't want to
Well, When you're talking,
get
you
into that.
kind of talked a lot about agricultural use and personal use and business use. And you have all this mixed together here. So you could kind of have this gray area, but every business is different. So you got your small
Home-based
mini
business.
excavator, you got something that's maybe somebody that's in the excavating business, but has enough farm ground that he justifies having a skid loader and a backhoe to use on his farm, but he's just not good enough to use out every day somewhere else that he leaves at home, and that's kind of considered personal. So, business-owned equipment versus personal or agricultural.
Okay, then
So
you heard-
that number shouldn't be applied, the personal number shouldn't be applied to the business.
But you heard an individual tonight talk about, and stand just pretty strong that he has personal stuff, and as far as he's concerned, that's personal, but he's using it every day for business. So, that right there, and granted, we need to make a rule, and we need to make a call, but for him, that would not work very well, and but it might work for the majority, I don't know.
I would say that you can have, with that individual, if he makes income with them dumpsters, that is a business. Even though he owns it, he's probably leasing it, there's some kind of paper trail that's tied to his business.
We might have to watch that, Mark, though, because what if some guy makes income with his backhoe? Does that all of a sudden become business? And we wouldn't want it to be, right?
You talking on a full-time or just?
Well, just like he gave the example of
Side
a
job.
dumpster, if he makes money with the dumpster, it's a business. If one day a year you use your backhoe to help one person and you charge him $5, you use it as a business.
And I would
And
think
we
we
don't
don't
want
want
that.
that. Yeah, right. I mean, we're not, that's,
The truth is, we're not gonna be able to chase people.
No.
That's never gonna happen.
Right.
Let me try this on. Large industrial equipment such as backhoes, tractors, mini tractors, skid steers, and lifts will be allowed, on tractor trailers, will be allowed at a ratio of 1 unit per acre, limited to a 7-unit maximum.
Wow.
say that one more time, the last,
Perfect.
how many maximum?
Limited.
Seven.
No matter what size of the lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
See, I find that
I'm so glad you're here.
a little larger. I mean, you could have a lot of people.
Here, let me fix that, limited to 6 units.
Five.
5 minutes.
Limited to 5 units.
Okay, but did you cover employees though earlier?
We did cover employees earlier.
So what was in that? How many employees?
There's no,
There's
it's
no-
subjective.
It's
Oh,
subjective.
It's
okay.
based on the approval. I mean, there's gotta be parking, there gotta be all that stuff that planning, which they've abandoned us.
I'm still here.
Oh, good.
I'm ready to
Which
land.
planning is gonna have to look at and assess
Yeah.
on an individual basis.
I know you're
Because
trying
it's not
not
gonna
to
be
make it
different for his
subjective.
house as it is her house.
Commanding and getting called out is two different things.
Yeah.
He got called out.
Well,
They want a legal line that they can draw, because legally they have to have a leg to stand on,
We need a
correct?
bar, it's some kind of bar that we can, you know, if someone calls up,
That's what I've been saying.
But then
We
you
need a bar.
also.
Especially if they can
I mean, you need to draw a line, I totally agree, because you need a legal leg to stand on. But you also cannot get away from being subjective, because lot size, how many are coming and going, how often is it, that's all going to matter. And I think that's also addressed in what is the nuisance to the neighbors.
Well, and going back, this is directly related to a home-based business.
Home occupation.
And if it's not a home-based business,
Then it shouldn't
then
apply.
it shouldn't apply,
I agree.
right?
Oh, that's an interesting thought, yeah.
I mean, if it's completely personal use,
so what do you do when they say it's personal use, but you see them driving it out to all the job sites, but they say it's personal use?
then it's not
But
it's not,
then
obviously.
but then we have to have a
He's
complaint
licensed.
with a written signature that has to come in.
And we've
so-
already had pictures when they submitted for their business license. We've got pictures of all the equipment they're gonna have on the site.
Right.
They told us what they're gonna do. They walked in, they made the agreement, and they signed the agreement.
But the problem you're gonna have is
We have a
those
contract,
people that
basically.
have no business license.
Well, that's not the issue here, though. I agree with you. That's,
Yeah.
we were talking about that earlier. That's
Yeah.
really the problem. It's not the guy.
And that's where the nuisance
Yeah.
could grab those folks without a business license.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a whole different.
Are
that's
we
a
on the
whole
right
different
line
issue.
talking area? You see any gravy area?
Yeah, we can come around twice.
We have to try to say anything that we, as far as you wait to hear, and then you can stop us in the middle of it.
I'll tell you when you get around the third time.
can grandfathering be part?
What's that?
Can grandfathering be part? Because if I lived here if I were raised here, and I started a business, and then all of a sudden the rules change, and I'm told, okay, now I gotta leave,
We
at a
addressed
huge
that.
expense,
We
that's
addressed
been,
The grandfathering is much harsher than what we're doing now.
okay.
And if it wasn't legal back before we were town, it's really not legal now that we're town, because even if they were doing it when they were in the county, and it wasn't approval of anything, then it's not gonna grandfather into ours, but if it was approved, it probably would be grandfathered.
There's where I had a problem, we've had business license, and suddenly I read no trucking companies are allowed. Where does that put me when I go to renew my business license? That puts me out the door. But I was granted a business license. We met with the mayor personally before we bought the property, stated what we were doing. Everything was okay, and then suddenly it's not okay.
You gotta watch them mayors.
So
No,
I say,
I would say it's certainly
It was
not
not
okay, it's just on paper at the moment, we're trying to make that sentence work
Right.
for all of us.
Well, that's why we're saying.
I'm saying I have a real problem with no
We got
trucking
that.
companies allowed.
We got it.
Okay,
Yeah, I heard you.
That's,
So what
That's
do you
kinda
want
where
it
it
to
is.
say?
okay, so this
That's
is,
where
this is what I'm
we're
proposing.
pushing.
Okay?
Large industrial equipment such as backhoes, trackhoes, mini trackhoes, skid steers, tractor trailers, and lifts will be allowed at a ratio of 1 unit per acre, limited to 6 units.
And what about visual? Do we wait until it's just a complaint, or do we add some visual in the code so we kind of have, whether it's a smaller fence, something to, do some kind of.
So you mean they gotta be waxed?
Right on the side of the road in front of your house? so
No, exactly,
Right.
I'm sorry.
So,
That's
That's a
kind of the
good
neighbor
point.
thing, isn't it?
that,
If you're a nuisance to the neighbor, that's where that's gonna.
that's
fall.
where, I mean, that's probably where you're gonna go on that neighborhood.
Tractors are exempt.
I mean, everybody's.
Probably should be.
Yeah.
Tractors aren't listed, are they?
No, they're not
Tractor
listed.
trailer, you meant semi, correct?
For tractor trailers.
What about lot sizes smaller?
So you're, let me be clear, tractor
Lot
trailers
size
is
is
in this,
smaller
so
than
if I
acre,
have a
smaller than
5 acre
acre.
lot.
Would have to be a
Up to
one unit, yeah, you have
Yeah.
to include that.
if it gets approved in the beginning.
Well, but if it says it in here, then it's gonna get approved, and that's kind of what we, I mean, people have a few pieces of equipment for themselves, great, but 5
So how,
trucks, it's not a-
So what's acceptable?
so speak up. I'm listening.
Okay,
I just started the conversation.
no, and
You
that's
got a
good, I
valid point,
appreciate
and I
it.
wanna hear it.
Yeah, it's a tough call, it really is, as to what can be allowed. I think it needs to be part visual. If things are hidden, I think that makes a big difference. And I think if it's being used every day, hauled in and out, I think that makes a big difference. If it's used just around the house, around the property, I think that makes a big difference. All these things need to work together into some form that works. But in my opinion, 5 semis on a 5-acre lot in a residential zone is way too many. So I agree.
Does everyone agree with that?
I agree with that.
Not me. Not biased.
Is this gonna be an argument?
5 seems a little excessive.
We moved
The
because
5
we thought we
backhoes
were
seems a little
excessive.
excessive.
I don't personally have 5 trucks come and go from my property every day when I had 5.
Okay.
We got,
They would come.
we either got 10 minutes left on this,
Sometimes
I'll, to go with these last 3 lines, and then we're gonna move on. We'll be here all night going to the 3rd time, we've made 3 rounds now, so that part is about 2
I'd have to tell him.
We
We
just
can
gotta
move
move
on
it.
right now and
So what's your
get
limit?
this thing over.
Let's see if we can move to number,
Bottom line.
No, finish it.
What's your limit?
Finish one thing, don't move on.
we got 3 things to finish.
Okay,
Well,
we'll
let's
finish
do
one.
But finish
Okay.
it before you
Well, we
go
got
on.
Well,
K and O.
this one takes care of 2 if we combine them.
Which one? Okay?
We're talking about shipping, transport, and equipment. Because we feel
We're
like,
combining it all
we
into
feel
one.
like they overlap.
Okay.
They do.
Shipping, transport, and trucking businesses are not allowed, and we're trying to, or we may mix that with K, large
I need
industrial
you to
equipment.
speak up, man.
Need you to what?
Speak up. What do you want that to say?
I like what you wrote.
I think that's the best one, too.
Read it again for me. Well, on, which one?
Read it.
The one. for-
Okay, so
Large industrial
basically,
equipment, he's
so this
combining
is,
five.
we're combining shipping and transport and trucking businesses and large industrial equipment.
And
That's
this
what
was
we're
gonna
doing.
happen.
Okay, ready? Large industrial equipment such as backhoes, track hoes, mini track hoes, skid steers, tractor trailers will be allowed at a ratio of 1 unit per acre, limited to how many?
Maybe
Okay, wait, does
used
it say
outside the property.
semis in there?
I'm
Tractor
sorry.
trailer.
Tractor trailer.
Oh, I see.
I think John's got a great thing to add in there,
Maybe used outside of the property.
because that kind of addresses the comings and
What do you
goings.
mean?
Yeah, if you have equipment, you might have a whole bunch of equipment like I do. But it stays on your property unless it goes to the next door neighbor who wants to borrow it or something.
Right, right,
Other
which-
than
which
that,
happens.
it's not a business, it's just stuff that's being used on the property and not being used as a business and being taken off, transported.
Go. That's not a bad idea.
That's a good angle.
It is, except for what John brought up. You take that piece of equipment, go
I
up the
mean,
road,
I-
and dig somebody's ditch for them, and suddenly it is a business.
No,
No,
that's
I
helping out
wouldn't
the
consider
irrigation
doing a job
system.
for a friend for a couple of bucks as I did with your excavator and excavator.
No.
John's fine.
I mean,
But
that's a
this is
neighborly
home
friendly,
occupation,
whatever thing
right?
that.
So they would have to have a
Correct.
business
It's not a- it's
license.
not a
To be affected by this code.
To be
you have to have a
affected by this
business
code,
license.
you would have to have a business
Yeah, you've got to have a
license.
business license anyway, so.
Yeah, she loaned me her brush hog and I beat it up and then I had to go buy my own.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Does this only apply if
Yes.
this is under the in-home business?
That's not.
This doesn't apply to the personal use of
No,
the
it does not.
equipment.
It does not.
But there's
Right.
lots of folks that
Right.
say it's personal, but it's really used for business. That's what we're trying to eliminate, is that they
Well,
can't.
Well, if it's
They'll never
used,
eliminate that because
if
they
it's-
just won't get a business license. They'll
if
say
it's used for
personal.
business, then it applies to this rule. But I'm saying the people that are using it for their personal use wouldn't funnel into this
They're not bound
category.
by this anyway.
Exactly,
You are correct.
If all
exactly,
they did was personal.
exactly. So what you're regulating here is the business,
Yes, you're
home
regulating me,
business.
you're regulating Mark.
You're not
I don't know,
regulating
do you have a-
people
are
that
you a
are
home
using
business?
it for personal.
do you have a business
No, he has
license
a
in
shop.
Shaw?
I've got one in Heber City.
In Heber City. See,
But
so-
lives in there.
So this
But
doesn't
I live
apply
in
to
there.
him. This doesn't apply to him.
Well-
And, yeah.
Because
you don't
what
have-
we're mixing up
Oh, the only
here
ones that, only one you
is
have
the
any
personal.
problem with is me and Mark.
But, and not to bring up a thing. so
But
he's
they're,
gotta-
they're just, are you making every home business do something like this?
Yes.
And you can't have your employees drive their car here. It's a nuisance.
Well, that's exactly what
There's
we.
too much
try to-
traffic in and out.
That's, those are issues we've been dealing with 11 months, trying to figure out. Employees, how many? One okay,
That's
five
what-
okay. So now we're trying to talk about equipment in the same realm as employees.
Employees.
But the goal was, is not to have your home, have employees come and go like,
We don't
like
want
always have
that.
to have commercial
Yeah.
ground. But we do want to have that room for that individual, fourth round, we're going on the fourth time. So,
Okay.
Chips can be turned on the front.
Mayor, can I ask just a quick question
Absolutely.
though? The gentleman who was here tonight, did he get a business license through the town of Daniel?
Yeah.
Did he get a
For the
business
mushrooms,
license?
yes.
For the farm.
Mushrooms, no.
But
For the
you
farm,
But not
and then
for
there
the
was
dumpster.
another
He
business.
applied for one for a dumpster, and I said that's not approved.
and so dumpsters kind of went in before, or went in after Eric had mentioned that. And then we asked him to come to a meeting, and he didn't, a year ago, and then he did today, and we all heard it, so.
I just wondered if he had a business license, because it seems to me
For one of his businesses, that's not,
that most of the problems you're gonna have are not the people who are adhering to this, like us, that are here and concerned. It's the
Yeah, we're
people
not-
who are going, and you're still gonna have that problem. This is all personal, and I don't need a business license.
Right.
Well, does it have a paper trail, like?
Like, yeah.
Well,
Say-
we won't be able to, I mean, that's gonna take court action to follow that. So that's probably not gonna happen, let's be honest.
So what we're looking for tonight is the people who are getting business licenses,
Who are definitely running their
that are out and open with it.
based,
What are you going to allow?
home.
for me, 5 is, I can't imagine having a guy with 5 semis and 5 employees coming next to me in a yard. That's a
I
big
can't
number for
even,
me, I
we've
can't, I
never had
can't.
that,
How
and
many
yet we
employees
must.
do you guys have?
One
I
right
get
now.
the piece of equipment per acre, I can see how that can
Yeah,
work,
business owner
but
and
not
all.
5 semis or not
But there's
5
three
giant
drivers.
tackles with thumbs, you know,
Can
lining
you
up.
address that in the employees coming and going rather than the equipment?
Well, both are kind of an issue. If you're just storing all your biz equipment there, that we're trying to eliminate numbers here. So,
Are you gonna
personal
give
use,
these
John Brown.
kind of people business licenses? Well, I mean, obviously you guys
They have.
have got it.
Well, if they
But-
don't have a business
but-
license, and I see my neighbor Stephanie running a business, I come and say, you know, she needs a
That's a
business
complaint.
license, and
That's
she
a
comes and
complaint.
applies for
Complaint
one, she might not know.
John, I'm really interested in your opinion as far as numbers and size. Somebody told me just a minute ago, size matters. So I'm interested in where you think we should go with
Beginning
that.
to
I-
regret
I
that
think
statement.
there's-
Yeah,
Let that go.
I think there's a difference between a semi and a skid steer. I don't know that we should really be grouping them
Together?
in the same category, because I think you could have quite a few backhoes and trackhoes and mini skid steers and things like that that are about as offensive as one semi. So I don't know that it makes sense to group them.
Okay.
Okay, but if you don't group them, then I can have all of these
So we
plus
can
the
make,
semi.
we can make another, we can
We
make
can
Well,
make
here's
another-
my
we can do
concern
the
with
same
that.
thing again and adjust it.
yeah, yeah.
So you're saying tractor trailers?
Are offensive.
need to be in another
So let's go
category.
back to large industrial equipment. So we say the same thing as we said before. Backhoes, trackhoes, mini trackhoes, skid steers, and lifts will be allowed at a ratio of 1 unit per acre, limited to 1.5, is that what you said?
Oh, he's,
Ray, you're gonna put the word,
He's
put
saying bring
something
10
visual in there as
skids in.
well.
What's that?
Put something visual in there.
Like it's gotta be out, I don't know how you say it, but like out of sight from whatever. Somehow kind of stored or hidden or whatever.
My whole place is.
Hidden from
Put
neighbors.
it behind the house.
Well, it depends on who your neighbor is.
That's what I was gonna say.
And that's a fact.
Yeah.
The backyard is hidden from the front yard, but not to the back.
And we have that.
And we do have that.
Yeah,
People
we-
put stuff in their
Not
backyard. and
visible
somebody else-
within 100 feet.
But, and I agree with that, but I think that is better than right in your front yard where everybody driving by the neighborhood and everything, it's now in their front yard too. You know, you see it as you're driving down the road.
They could we could ask for a simple privacy fenced area where they keep it. You might see the top of something, I mean, that takes half it. I'm throwing that out, I don't know if that's even feasible, but anyway, there might be some visual things that might help. You get a higher number, or a lower number without visual, but, you know,
So limited, so 1 unit per acre, so that means you'd have to have 5 acres or more to have 5 units. And then we'd have to do like we do with either burns or planting or, is that what you guys are talking
And
about?
I don't know that it needs to go that far, just back off the main road type of thing. Again, I don't know how to do this, but just as out of sight as we can kind of make it reasonably.
You would
How do you
address that
legislate?
and it doesn't take away from the
What about a
village
setback from the road?
neighborhood.
there you go, now we're
Address
going to
that.
write, it's a setback off
But you
either
comply
side
with
and or
100%
front.
Yeah, yeah.
And the parking would be limited by a 100-foot setback from the road?
Something like that, maybe.
So Eric, on that footage, is that any?
100 or 50?
Do you have any
I'm
preference?
100's
on any
pretty-
footages,
that's
or-
good.
Well, I just
Yeah,
think
for a
about
small
what
lot,
we
it
have.
is
We
pretty
got-
far.
50 feet?
We have a
Yeah.
well driller in our town that sits way back
Be
in.
in the back corner of your.
We got some serious complaints from a fellow.
Exactly.
Because of all the.
I don't even know if we
So,
remember.
yeah,
we don't have-
You make them
Because
pull
there's a
out
lot of
back,
errors.
as a matter of fact.
That's because of flag lot.
Nobody,
Yeah.
they wouldn't even work.
Or even where Mark is, he's driving to the back, and so now you start getting complaints on dust and noise in the back.
Yeah.
And it consumes a lot of your agricultural land to have to turn those big trucks around if you make them be back 150 feet too.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you don't just turn them on a dime, you haven't got a turntable.
I guess my curiosity is, why is a semi so much more offensive than a backhoe or I mean, I sat in my yard the other day and heard a motorcycle going up and down, and believe me, that was a lot more offensive. You couldn't talk over it.
Yeah, they go down my.
I hear the semis go down the road and I barely even know they're there and they're gone.
You are biased.
Yeah. I never hear Tom Ingalls. I see him.
Okay,
He
let's.
I never
idles-
hear
he
him.
idles all
I
the way.
never hear
So does
him.
he.
So does Jack, yeah.
And I,
Those guys idle down.
I would
And
be
I know the
amazed if
bare
someone
garbage
said they
trucks
hear
by
him
hand.
coming.
I know who's driving those trucks.
Now, the county guys, I hear them.
Yeah.
Okay, so why are we putting it on, I mean, I wish Tom was here, because I've had this conversation with Tom a lot. He had a terrible, terrible experience with the trucking company. And I'm totally with him, I understand how awful it was, and yet he's one of the ones that pushed the most for us to be able to do this. Why? Because he knows it's the nature of the business owner, not the nature of the business. And like I said, I can hear the county trucks coming. And I guess they don't care, because who's gonna shut them down?
That's right.
Nobody.
I don't
hear
hear
them
those
coming
other guys.
and
I see them and I go, oh, they're
You
going
need those
by.
snow plows.
Yes. We're glad they
I'm
do.
just wondering why that we put this, oh, this is more offensive.
I don't know, I think
Well,
five,
I mean, the only
think
thing I would
five
say is
one-tons.
physically it's bigger, that's the only.
five pickups, you heard Jay.
Yeah.
Everyone hates
It's
Jay
not
had-
any noisier.
that big bad truck going down the road.
Yeah, I can go and sit in my
And
Right,
his
that's-
pickup
That's
is
what we
much more
get
annoying.
everywhere we go.
Yeah.
Pickup is regular.
I think that's what Jay was saying, those pickups that were over there running the landscape business next door to her was much more offensive. They didn't have a diesel, but they had enough guys over there starting them trucks up in the morning, and that was way offensive to Jay.
And we have taken the time and time again to talk to our employees and say, hey, let's talk quietly, let's go in the shop and talk if we need to talk.
Yeah.
And like I said
Hey,
again,
it's
it's
like,
the
you
nature of
just
the
shut
business
down and get out of
owner,
here.
not business.
We try really hard to be unoffensive to our neighbors.
You can get a bad neighbor.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock.
Yes. That's why you have the nuisance ordinance.
So we're still got those three.
Still got those three, it's 10 o'clock, we'd like to get it done.
No,
We
it's
wasted
all
45.
nine.
It's only nine.
It's 9, 9, 9.
Feels like that.
New Orleans winning, that's all I need to know.
No, it's Vikings,
So,
something.
if we're regulating home-based businesses that are doing work out of their home, then I think if you just, if they're gonna have more than 3 vehicles, then they have to have it somewhere else. Don't you think 3 is a reasonable amount for a home-based business?
Yes. coming and going each day?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I think
I-
3.
I have to agree with you there.
Okay, we got 2 consensus. Anybody on the board then? Okay, got a head shaking, how are you?
No, I don't
No
think-
matter what size the lot, it's 3 now.
No, she just suggested it, so we're not saying it is, we're just trying, is that, that's what you're saying, no
That's
matter what
where
size?
She's
3?
suggesting a limit.
Yeah.
Right.
Not regard to size, just a limit
Home-based
of.
business, this is not a,
Or
Commercial business.
you know, this